Today, we are so fortunate to get to talk to a local entrepreneur, former MHS student, Jared Gravatt. Jared, thank you so much for taking time out of what I know is still a very busy time for you to speak with my students. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited.
Well, we're just going to jump right in because I feel like we have a lot to talk about in my
Okay.
limited 40-minute Zoom session with you. Um, So just tell my students a little bit about what high school was like for you. What were you involved with? When did you graduate? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so I went to Marion High School my junior and senior year. So I went from like a class of like 7 kids to a class of like 300 plus kids. So it was a big transition for me. Um, I loved Marion High School so much. I think I was a little more on like the shy, intimidated side, so I kind of kept myself. But was really involved in art. I loved working with clay and those kinds of things, and just everything that they offered. I loved it. I think I would have identified more as an art nerd in high school.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all. In fact, the MHS art show, they did a virtual show last night.
Oh,
Um,
that's cool. I
and
didn't see it.
if any of you are interested, go to the Marion High School Facebook page or the art department Facebook page and check it out. They did YouTube videos by class of all the things that they did
Oh,
this year.
that's so cool.
We're so fortunate to have Miss Wilson and Miss Akes. They do just such a tremendous job and so much talent.
Yeah,
But I do remember though, you did make friends quickly. Like you had a really good, strong core group of friends.
I did. Yeah, I
And jumped
did.
right in. So
Yeah.
that's true.
I Some of the best people. It was awesome.
Yeah. So now, what year did you graduate?
2008.
2008. Okay.
Yeah, which feels like yesterday, but it wasn't. I'm turning 30 on Saturday. I can't believe it.
Oh my goodness. Well, I would have worn a party hat had I known. I just, yeah, I'm the same way. Like everyone's a freshman in college, and then I see them, and then they're out with families or running companies, and I'm like, are you still 19? Like, how did that happen? So everyone's frozen in time when they leave Marion High School.
Yeah.
So what happened once you graduated? If you wouldn't mind to kind of discuss the path that you've taken to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I want to like advise too is, everybody's path is different. So I wouldn't encourage everyone to do exactly what I've done. But I don't regret what I've done either. I think it's really helped for me. But, after high school, I started going to John A. Logan, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I was going to school for. And so I ended up dropping out, and I knew I wanted to travel. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to get involved in nonprofit work. So I ended up moving to Texas pretty shortly after high school, and worked for a like a nonprofit charity over there, where I was able to do like overseas missions work in Africa and Peru and different countries, and I loved it. I mean, I definitely fell in love with it. We did all kinds of different stuff there. So I was based in Texas for a few years, and then really got involved in kind of the nonprofit work, and kind of got to see the ins and outs of kind of how that worked. And then after that, I ended up moving to Kansas City because a lot of my friends moved there, and Kansas City just seemed like a good transition for me. I don't know, it wasn't too big, wasn't too small, And so I lived in Kansas City for a few years and worked at a CarMax. I sold cars, hated my job. But
Sometimes that's how we figure out.
oh yeah. Yeah. I always say the best way to learn what you love to do is by doing something that you hate. But yeah, so I worked there and lived there for a while, and Kansas City was really saturated in like craft coffee. And so a lot of my community, we would meet at coffee shops. We'd have really intentional conversations and stuff like that. So I had a lot of just really impactful memories in a coffee shop setting. And I remember, living there, a lot of my friends moved away, and I just was thinking about Southern Illinois, and I was like, there's so much opportunity back at home. You know, I was truthfully, I was that kid that was like, I will never move back to Southern Illinois. I hate it there. But the more that I thought about it, I'm like, you know, Southern Illinois is such a special place and is just open with opportunity for anybody that wants to just do something, right? And so I ended up moving back and didn't again know what I wanted to do. I was like a teacher's aide for a while, um and ended up doing some more nonprofit work. So a charity in Chicago called Watts of Love, they deliver solar powered lights to like third world villages throughout the world, um, to help like with electricity and stuff. And so they hired me to be a photographer because I loved photography. I loved that kind of stuff. And so they hired me to be a photographer for that trip. And it was just an incredible eye-opening experience for me. And someone ended up inviting me to speak at a conference at the Marion Civic Center. And when I was there, there was this guy that was selling beans from Guatemala and like fair trade merch and stuff. And I just kind of started talking to him. I ended up buying a bean just because I knew it was like going to go to a good cause, but I figured it was like really crappy coffee, you know. But come to find out, it was like the best coffee I've ever had in my life. But we just connected, and I kind of opened up to him about how, you know, I wanted to see more businesses in Southern Illinois that encourage the arts, that, you know, had excellence and uniqueness. And I loved the craft coffee, what it meant as far as for community. It's just something about coffee just created this neutral ground for all different types of people to come and gather and connect. And I was telling him I really wanted to have something like that. So mind you, I don't know him at all. We end up getting lunch like a few weeks after, and he's like, I have this idea, you know, he's like, do you want to start a business together? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. You know, but he asked me something that was really, it shook me. But he asked me, he was like, what do you want to do with your life? Like, what's your dream? And I immediately just spewed this like dream of like businesses and community and impacting culture and society and all this stuff. And he goes, well, what are you doing about it? And that question really hit me, because like I talked a really big talk and I had a really great vision, but I wasn't doing anything about it. I think at the time I was working retail at Dillard's, and which I love, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do. And so when he kind of presented that opportunity of like, let's start a business together, I was like, you know, this could be really crazy. And it was, but I was like, here's an opportunity, and I'm ready to do something about it. And so that's kind of how Crown Brew began, and I can go further into that whole journey. But
yeah, I would. That's actually kind of where I was going to segue, because first of all, I think it's pretty wild knowing someone a couple of weeks and being like, yeah, I'm gonna open a business with you. Yeah. Not that I would ever tell, you know, like I don't typically tell my students to do that. I'm more of like, look at the numbers, think, and I get all that. We're gonna get into that. But I think sometimes in your gut, you know what I mean? Like when you know. And so I would love for you to dive into that specific journey then. Like how did Crown Brew come about from those couple of conversations?
Yeah. So, you know, for me, my heart was to create a product that was extremely excellent, that I wanted something that the people in this region could be proud of. You know, I saw a lot of businesses where they would try to cut as many corners as possible and try to make as most money. And that always frustrated me. I'm like, I want to see excellent businesses come up, you know, that are unique, that are, you know, different. And one of the things that when we started the company was we talked about, you know, home brewing. You know, how can we educate people to brew better coffee at home? And so that was kind of where we were from the beginning. We created these really intentional gift boxes with like handwritten notes to each customer. I mean, we went above and beyond to create this like experience for them. And it really worked out for us because people were posting about it on Instagram and Facebook and sharing it, and people were marketing for us, which helped us in that time because we didn't have a marketing budget, you know. But Josh and I, we ended up going to LA and different places to learn more about craft coffee. And in our pursuit, you know, we thought that these craft coffee places would be like, oh yeah, this is how you do it, and this is what it looks like. But they were so pretentious and closed off and like very rude. And I remember thinking, it kind of hit me. I'm like, you know, a lot of craft coffee industry is very, in a lot of ways, kind of pretentious and closed, and it makes people feel ignorant or that it's unapproachable. And so I was like, how can we, you know, we saw a need in the industry of how can we bridge that gap of educating people, especially like, you know, in this region, if there's not a lot of craft coffee, you know, we have to educate them and bring them into that place in a non-intimidating way that's not belittling them or anything like that. And so we really wanted to go heavy on the education side of things and the hospitality and just the inviting people into that world in a very non-judgmental way. And you know, a lot of people were like, yeah, you can't do craft coffee in Southern Illinois. People aren't going to understand it. These are Folgers drinkers. And I'm like, you know, I'm from Southern Illinois, and this is something that I would want. And so, yeah, so that was like our whole thing is like with our staff, we were like, we want people that provide a great experience to the customer. You know, I don't care if you can make an amazing drink, if you're rude or if you're, you know, someone doesn't feel seen or loved when they walk through that door, to me, it's pointless, you know? And so we were really like strong about that, just to create that experience. And for me, I was from the very beginning, I was like, this place has to be Instagrammable, because I, my theory is, you know, when people market for you, it's a lot more believable, right? When someone's like, hey, I just had an incredible experience at a place. This is what they're doing. This is what it looks like, blah, blah, blah. And they're telling their friends about it. That's more believable than me being like, we're a great coffee shop. You need to come buy our product, right?
Yeah,
And so
the authenticity.
authenticity, yes,
Yeah.
which is part of our like core value as a company. And what's funny is, you know, when I first started in designing and everything, someone goes, you know, you're really good at marketing. And I was like, thanks. And kid you not, I like turned around because I didn't take your marketing class. I took your business class, but I didn't know what marketing was. So I remember turning around my phone and was like Googling, what is marketing? And it hit me. I'm like, you know, I love marketing. I love telling a story. And part of like my marketing motto is, if I wouldn't buy it, I'm not going to try to sell it. Like, I have to believe in what I'm saying, because every generation, they see the authenticity. They see what you're saying. They can smell when something seems inauthentic, right? And I think a lot of companies, they try to assume what people want or what people will like, and they come up with something that is just generic and fake, and people smell that and they don't like it. And so for me, it was very important that whatever I'm selling, it's important that I'm proud of it, right? I'm not just doing it just to be doing it. And for me, that's been, I think, been really successful for us, just because when you're passionate about something, other people can follow suit in that same passion and share your product just as passionately as you do, right? And so, yeah, we ended up opening up a cafe, and, you know, didn't know what we were doing, and made a lot of mistakes. But I think, you know, the thing that like people said is, you know, hire people better than you, hire people smarter than you know, don't be so insecure that you have to be like the smartest one in the room. And so we hired really incredible people and in our like hiring process, to me as an employer, I'm not even looking at college degrees. I'm looking at, are you driven? Are you teachable? Can you grow with the company? Those are really important things that people are looking for, because I can teach someone how to make coffee, but I can't teach someone, how to be a nice person, or how to be like, those are really important character things.
Those intrinsic characteristics, I think a lot of times are what set people apart, no matter what industry you're in.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think there is a certain amount of that that's bred into us in the Midwest, like the work ethic.
Yeah.
Is there. But when you put someone with a work ethic with something they're passionate about, you can't stop them.
Right. Yeah. And so honestly, from my journey, I couldn't afford college. I wanted to go, I couldn't afford it, but that didn't mean that I couldn't get educated. And so what I did was, I'm Googling the crap out of things and YouTubing, and I'm pursuing mentors. And, the best mentors are the ones that say no to you 5 times until you break them. And then, it's if you're hungry for something, if you're hungry to do something, education is so important, that even if you can't afford a degree, that doesn't mean that gives you an excuse to not seek after knowledge. There's so many resources everywhere.
Absolutely.
For people,
and we are fortunate to live in a time where there is so much. If you have an internet connection, you can get a lot of information. Now you may have to sift through some bad information to get to the good, but there is information available for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I'm so thankful for meeting with business people that have helped us see further down the road, because sometimes as a young person, you could just be super passionate about what's right in front of you. You're not looking ahead. And so that's super important. But I ended up, through Crown Brew, starting a marketing company called Goldridge Creative. And it's still baby, but I love telling stories. I love celebrating things that deserve to be celebrated. And that's my whole motto in marketing is, seeing the gold in something and celebrating that. And so my whole hope is that people do that in just their daily lives. I think we live in a society, sometimes it's so negative and we're so nitpicky, but there's something powerful when you can be able to articulate and share the gold that you're seeing in your community and businesses and people and those kinds of things. So,
I think the time that we're in right now is one of those times that kind of the people that can see the gold are going to rise to the top, because we've got 2 paths we can take right now. We can be down and depressed and negative, or we can, find the beauty in the daily things, reach out to connect with people, use this time to grow. And so I think you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah. Awesome.
So you were in Carterville, and I'm sure that, well, I don't know, a lot of people hopefully are going to watch this, but now you're in the process with Crown Brew of establishing a shop in Marion, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So we weren't able to stay in Carterville. They wouldn't renew our lease there, which was unfortunate, but Marion really encouraged us and opened their arms for us to come into Marion. So we ended up, the space that we're in now is where it used to be a Union Street pub, kind of by the square downtown. And so we're currently renovating the building, which is a lot of a bigger space. I think this next round of Crown Brew is going to be kind of a different monster. It's going to be a lot bigger. It's going to have a lot more offerings. So I'm excited about it, but I'm also a little intimidated about it. I'm not going to lie. It's a next level for us. But for me, it was important that it did take it to the next level. I'm very intentional with the design of the place, but as young entrepreneurs, you don't have a lot of money and capital. And so we pretty much have done everything ourselves. I'm so thankful for YouTube. It can teach me how to tile. It can teach me how to drywall. It can teach me how to like lay brick. I'm telling you, like I've done it all, and I didn't believe that I could do any of those things, but we have done, and we've saved a lot of money by doing it, but still kept our conviction of providing a excellent experience visually. So I'm really excited to get this kind of renovation done and really create a space that I think especially creative people will love to be around and in and that kind of thing.
So this is going to be very reflective of you and your partner in the aesthetic.
Absolutely. Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
very exciting. So when you say that you think it's going to be next level with the space provided, like, are you thinking there will be other options for the venue? Like, will it be a place that people can gather for, I don't know, showers or to lease out the space for private events? Um,
Yeah.
what do you showcase local artists? What are you thinking?
Yeah, we've talked about all those things. It's about, almost triple the seating space of
Wow.
our last shop. What's interesting is it has two different sides. So there's another room in the side that would really be perfect for like baby showers and small groups or businesses to host like meetings and stuff like that in. So yeah, we've talked about all those things. We still want to have live music. We used to have live music every Friday night, and we love just showcasing like local artists, whether that's musicians or poets or writers or even just like painters and that kind of stuff too. We have people doing murals and stuff like that on the walls. I just want the place covered in art. um so yeah, all the above on that. We really want it just to be a space. We have hundreds of outlets everywhere, just because in our previous space a lot of like entrepreneurs and photographers and stuff like that would have meetings and do their work at the shop, and so we wanted it to be a space where people could kind of hang out all day and just work there and kind of get away from home and have a nice kind of creative space where they can you know work or have a meeting with somebody.
I love that you want to make a space that will inspire creativity. And I think that's something that definitely needs to be nurtured in Southern Illinois. So that's very exciting. And, just a place that people want to be, to spend their time in, someplace that they can go and be inspired. I think that's really, really wonderful. And it's neat because I've been following you on Instagram, and literally you stripped this place down to the bare bones so that you
Yes.
kind of build it back up the way you want it, with all those outlets.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah.
you probably had to spend a lot of time just thinking through, the logistics of the design and kind of how you wanted things to be.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. We had to change a couple things here and there, but that was interesting kind of coming up with this out of almost nothing, just basically a shell. I think there was like red velvet wallpaper on the walls, and I was like, it's gotta go. I can't even think. Um, but yeah, so it's been really fun. It's been really challenging for me personally to make a space that's unique but also cohesive. And so it's just been like a unique kind of design monster for me, but I've loved it. It's challenged me in so many ways that I didn't even think.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, partnering that uniqueness with the functionality that you need.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's been really fun. So, what do you think then makes a successful entrepreneur? I know you've talked a lot about learning, and having an initiative to learn on your own. But what are those characteristics? If I have students that think, I really think I want to work for myself.
Yeah.
Um, what are the things that are important?
Yeah. So a couple things. I always talk about how I think in the heart of every entrepreneur, um, they see a need or they see a void or a lack. And so they think and they strategize of ways that they can meet that need or kind of fill that in, right? I saw a need, there was a lack of craft coffee in our region. I wanted to fill that. I wanted more spaces for community to gather. I wanted for music and that kind of stuff. Um, And I think, each entrepreneur is unique in their own ability to do that. I always say you have to be like a literal crazy person to want to start a business. But if you even like see all the dangers in the warnings and you're like, I still want to do that, then you were probably like made to be an entrepreneur and you go for it,
Yeah, I mean, you have to be a risk taker. You have to.
Yes. Yeah. And so something that absolutely changed my life is someone said, Jared, to a smart crow, a scarecrow is an advertisement. And I really thought about that. And I'll say it one more time, to a smart crow, a scarecrow is an advertisement. And what does that mean? It means the scarecrows in life often are guarding the greatest fruit, right? The produce, the goods. And there are so many things in our life that try to intimidate us, whether that's our own insecurity, whether that's people, naysayers, all these things that didn't work, to get us away. But I think in the heart of a successful entrepreneur says, I see the scarecrow, and because I see the scarecrow, I'm going to look down and I'm going to see the opportunity that lies right underneath it. And so I always encourage people, oftentimes the scarecrows in our life, the greatest blessing is right underneath that, if you're smart enough to see what's happening. Because most people, they listen to the scarecrows or they're intimidated by the scarecrows and they just don't do it. Whether that's, I don't have a degree, so I can't do this. Or, you don't have a lot of money, I can't do this. Or, this doesn't really exist in our region, that probably won't work, right? We're always listening to the voices of scarecrows in our life. But if you are determined enough and smart enough to say, I'm going to look beyond that and I'm going to see how I'm going to get to this fruit, there is great measure of success there. And so I think a lot of it comes with self-awareness. I think it's so important that, especially as a young person listening to this, spend these young years learning yourself, growing your character, right? I always, a lot of people say, when I grow up, I want to do this. Well, I actually hate that statement, because you are who you are today. And so nurture and grow your character. Learn what you like, learn what you don't like. Don't despise the jobs that you hate, because oftentimes those jobs reveal something that you like doing, right? Sometimes adversity will push you into that place that you really are wanting to do. I've had a lot of jobs that I didn't like, but I'm thankful for that, because if I was just comfortable doing something, I may not have brought me to where I am today. So everything in my life has kind of pushed me into this place. I think it's important that, like, I wrote this down. I said, stop numbing your mind. I think it's so easy for people just to numb their minds with TV and all this kinds of stuff. But boredom can sometimes actually lead you to like amazing light bulb experiences, So yeah, I think, and then another thing is teachability. So what does actually teachability looks like? It means that you can learn and adapt and grow in different situations. You can see a bigger picture. I try to, we've had situations where my staff, they were so narrow-minded in certain areas. And I'm like, okay, let's take a step back. Let's look at the bigger picture of why, doing this is important versus this, right? So I know I'm spewing a ton of stuff out.
No, this is great. This is
yeah,
great.
But yeah, I think those are just really simple, fundamental ones. If you're an insecure person, which I very much was in high school, I didn't believe in myself. And I'm thankful that I had people in my life, whether that was like teachers like you or mentors, that really pushed me out of my comfort zone to see the potential that I could do, right? Weeks ago, I didn't think that I could tile a bathroom or brick a wall or do those things. Thanks to YouTube, I can now, right? You can do anything according to Google and YouTube, I swear. But I will always live by that statement.
There's a lot of truth to that. That is true.
but it's just, it's important that in these years, you're constantly working on self-development. Self-development is more than just learning a craft or a skill. It's facing your insecurities, your fears. It's looking at the scarecrows in your own life and saying, am I going to continue to listen to this, or do I move on, or do I continue to pursue my dreams? Yeah, you might fail, but still, you, like, there's a lesson. We failed so many times at the beginning of Crown Brew, but I remember sitting back and being like, I am so thankful for this lesson. It actually has helped us more in the long run because of this certain failure, than if we had just continued to do things the same way. And so don't be afraid of failure. Failure is going to happen, but if you don't let it paralyze you, it can actually be like the biggest aid tool for the next step of where you're trying to go. So, okay.
I think those are all such important things for my students to hear. And the fear of failure thing has come up more than once in these interviews. And I see in my students a lot of times they're so worried about the letter grade they're getting versus what they're learning, because they feel that pressure, from whomever to, meet certain standards. And, I try to tell them, like, okay, put this in perspective. What can you learn from this bad grade? Or what can you learn from, you did poorly on this test, but that doesn't mean that you're failing at life,
Yes, that's so good. Yeah.
That is definitely something that is better to learn sooner rather than later. So
absolutely.
really, really good advice. I cannot wait for my students to hear from you. The thing is, Jared and I talked at the beginning of the school year. He was on campus serving teachers Crown Brew. And I said, hey, will you come in and talk to my marketing class this year? And he said, absolutely. And then, we lost the fourth quarter and things just come together. So this has been absolutely wonderful. We have a couple of minutes left. So first thing, if someone sees this that doesn't already follow your social media accounts for Crown Brew, where can they find more information about your company and kind of watch the process as you continue to finish up this building and get ready to reopen?
Yeah, so I'm posted on Crown Brew, like on our Instagram. Crown.brew is the tag, and then on my personal page, Jared Gravatt, JaredGravatt is my Instagram. I'm always posting on there too. I haven't been like sharing everything because I don't want to give everything away.
Yeah.
I've been sharing little bits and stuff, but so you can follow us there. And then we've also recently started a campaign called Marion United, which is to help raise money for local businesses. And so right now we've been really involved in that project, even still, just because of the economic effect that has taken place during this pandemic. And so, we're involved in that as well. It's just Marion United is our Instagram, and then marion-united.com is the website that we created.
Okay, so that was actually the last thing on the agenda.
Yeah.
I just wanted to touch on that. You mentioned how you really loved getting involved in community service and nonprofits, and here in the middle of these trying times, you found a way to take those skills and do something for our community. And I know a lot of my students have heard about this because it was really well publicized. But maybe for those who are watching that aren't watching from the area, just talk a little bit kind of what you did and who you partnered with and kind of how that's going.
Yeah. So it happened one day. Me and my business partner were eating tacos in the car, And I was like, you know, we're actually have been really blessed in the sense that we've been closed and renovating, and we didn't have to fire any staff just because we were already in that process. So like, how can we give back to this community? I mean, a lot of businesses we had connected with, and they're like, man, we're considering closing. Like, it's just not good. So our heart was breaking for our community and these businesses that we love so much. And so again, in the heart of every entrepreneur, you say there's a problem. So what can we do? You know, what does that look like, right? We know. And so I remember asking Josh, and he goes, well, you know, normally you gather people together to raise money. And I was like, well, we can't really do that. So how can you gather people together without gathering them together, right? And I got this like light bulb idea. And I remember thinking about when the Australian wildfires happened, they did like a telethon with live music and stuff like that, and raised a lot of money. I thought, why don't we just do like a live stream benefit event where people can stream in and call and donate money that way? So immediately after, we called the mayor, told him our crazy, you know, idea, and the mayor was like, 100%, you have our support, let's do this. Within days, so Josh and I have a background kind of in marketing just through our own taught. We created a web page, Instagram, Facebook, graphic. I hired a graphic designer. We had t-shirts made. I mean, within days, all this was like created. And so we partnered with Southern Illinois Community Foundation, which is a local nonprofit, to where the funds could go to. And basically what it will do is all the money that was coming in would create grants for small businesses in the area that have been affected by the pandemic. And so we knew a lot of musicians because they played in the coffee shop, and we were able to build relationships with them. And a lot of them lost gigs as well. So even they were like hurting financially. So we're like, let's hire some amazing musicians. Let's broadcast it all over social media and get people to donate. So we had the night, and people were even donating throughout the week. Now this was like a week and a half from beginning to end from the night. So all this happened in such a short amount of time. Yeah. And we ended up raising close to $200,000 for local businesses. We gave out 111 checks, which is just an amazing thing to do. Yeah. And, you know, I think it was amazing to see the whole community come together and rally around this cause and donate for businesses that they love so much. Like, it was so amazing. And so our heart was like, you know, how can we get other communities to do the same thing? We want to create a blueprint picture of other people to do the same stuff. And so it was awesome. We even had a guy from Marion High School come up to us and was like, you know, I have an idea with stuff. And so it's amazing is there's so many people, whether they're in high school or whether they're elderly, it doesn't matter. They've got brilliant ideas for our community. And I think it's that heart of an entrepreneur where they see the need and they ask, what can we do? How can we do this? We see the obstacles. How do we go around that? Or how do we make this work? You know? And so, yeah, that was a really cool experience. People are still donating, and there's such a need still for the businesses in this area. And so we're hoping to raise more money for them. But yeah, we love this community. We love this region, and our heart is to not see a single small business close their doors. That would really break our heart. So
that is a wonderful mission. And kudos to you and Josh and everyone that was involved with Marion United. Just such a wonderful thing that you did in such a quick amount of time. And it's really neat to see you taking action and doing what you can to help. And we are this close to running out of time.
Okay.
So we may have to schedule session 2. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm down for it.
Session 2 can be live in my classroom. That would
Awesome.
be really great. Thank you so much, Jared, for sharing with me and my students. I really appreciate all you're doing for our community, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you. My pleasure. I love your class. You're my favorite teacher.
That's a
I love it. Yeah, thank you so much. This is fun.
Yeah.